just waiting for my guest, Motladi, to join the call. So just give me a second. Let's see if I can invite her. There we go. Oh, I see. I see people I know here. I see Tash. Ah, Motladi.
Hey, Lubna.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very good. How are you, my friend?
I'm really good. I'm very excited about this conversation.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are. As you can see, I see like there's quite a few people joining, and I think we'll give them a minute to join. I see quite a few people I know as well, which is great,
Yeah,
and a lot of people
same.
I don't know, which is even better.
Yeah, it's really nice. I'm super excited to also see who's going to join. This is great.
Yeah, so everyone who's joined the call, I'm not sure if you've had a chance to read Mutlari's impressive bio, but I will actually introduce her, and for those that haven't read her bio before, she is sitting in France at the moment, and that's daylight there. I mean, what's the time now in France?
So, well, it's same time, so it's 7 o'clock, except the sun only goes down at around 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
This summer, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's something we're not accustomed to in South Africa.
I mean, in Cape Town, you guys do get longer days, so it wasn't too much of
True.
an adjustment when I got here. But it is, I mean, it is extreme. It messes with your sleep pattern. Yeah.
I can imagine.
Mm.
Okay. So I see there's quite a few people on the call. So I really want, I know that this time is going to go by very quickly. So let me start by introducing, and your bio is a bit too long for me to have memorized. So I'm going to be reading, I'm going to be reading, your bio to introduce Motlari.
Okay.
So for the people that have joined the call, I see Linda has also joined. So Motlari is a statistician. She is doing her second master's now in data science. Her first master's was in population studies at UW, and she's currently, so your master's is in data science and artificial intelligence in France. She's also an expert in the field of biostatistics and demography. She's worked for quite a few NPOs looking at HIV and TB. She's built tools that contributed to models that tracked and traced HIV-infected patients. She's been a Golden Key member. She has won the Nurturing Emerging Scholars Program scholarship as well. And as if that's not enough, she's also published 2 articles in international journals, which is very amazing. And that's Natalia's bio. What I have written, I sort of added a few things. Natalia is sort of humble about this, but I said that I also wrote that coming from a township of Motladi to now living in France, doing her second master's and having 2 published articles in international journals, I think, like I said, that her remarkable journey is proof that your circumstances don't define you. But besides that, it's proof that your sky is the limit. And I think that that's very inspirational. And I think that's sort of what we want to be talking about today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Thank you so much, Lubna. That was great. Yeah, thanks.
You're getting shy there, but I mean, I didn't make this up. This is all your achievement, so there's nothing to be shy about. You should own it.
Oh, thanks.
Um,
I mean, it's an area that, I mean, I mentioned to you, I'm like, Lubna, it's a lot, so much. But thank you so much for helping me with that. Yeah.
no, it's. I mean, I think it's something that you should not shy away from. It's something that you should celebrate, and I think that part of our discussion today is not only to celebrate. That's one thing, but it's also to inspire other people as well.
Mm-hmm.
To also not be shy of their own achievements and to also aim higher. I think that's definitely a big part. Start for the series, but I know that it's a very strong, you know, it's a very strong start as well. And I think that, and I'm very excited to have you. So I've spent so long sort of talking about all of your achievements. So what I'd like to know is, oh, that's lovely. I see somebody says Mo is a legend, so proud. So I see that you've got a lot of cheerleaders
Yeah.
on the floor as well, which is great.
I mean, all of
Um,
these people, we went to school together, so that's fun. Yes.
oh, that's lovely. And
Yeah.
I invite discussion. So I'm happy for you guys to also give your input as well. This is about celebrating women. So I think, such a long list of achievements. How did you go about becoming so successful and achieving all of that?
Mm. So that is such a loaded question because I think
I
there's
know.
obviously a lot of variables that contributed. It's like my whole life journey, pretty much, is what I'm hearing you asking me. But I think one of the things I can mention is that my mother is a librarian. So education has always been a very important thing to her, right? So growing up, again, as you've well mentioned, I grew up in a township. We didn't have much, obviously. It wasn't the best environment to grow in, but one thing that my mom was pretty sure about was that if she provided us with the best education and put her resources in that, then we have a better chance at succeeding. So I was exposed to really, really good situations in terms of learning things. I mean, I was living in a township, but at some point I even got to learn how to play the clarinet. So my mom was all about education. But I think more than anything, you'd need to be a very gritty individual. You need to be stubborn in your resolve and decide that you want to transform your life. And it's funny you asking me this because I remember the first week that I arrived in France, I went to Nice and I went to the castle in Nice. And I stood there and I remembered a quote. I think it is by, what's his name? George Bernard Shaw. Well, George Bernard Shaw. And he said that life isn't about finding yourself, life is about creating yourself. And in that moment, I realized that I'd created myself because my environment didn't suggest that I could be all of these things. But I took it upon myself to be like, okay, life, these are the cards that you gave me, but I don't want them. I want those cards. And I just was stubborn in my resolve, and that's what I wanted, and that was that. So I think how you get to where I'm at, or rather how you achieve the things that you want, if you come from a previously disadvantaged environment, is by being gritty, being focused. It's a long journey. It's got long suffering, but being persistent. Faith as well. Like you have to believe that you deserve good things and these things will come to pass. You have to believe this, otherwise it's not going to happen. So I think that's what's helped me, Lubna.
So that's great. You talk about sort of believing and having faith and, having grit as well. So, I mean, I think I've told you as well, I don't come from a wealthy background either. I was also first generation in my household to actually go to university as well. And I think, and so I can sort of relate to what you're saying. And I think we were also connected that that was the one thing that my father also was very insistent on. It was education. And I think that that's a big thing about sort of, being successful or getting out of your current situation. And I know you mentioned that your mom was a librarian, and what better way to have access to books as
Yeah.
well and to learning as well. And I do think that sort of, disadvantage or poverty, part of it is a mindset as
Mm,
well.
mm, mm.
Like you can be in a disadvantaged home, but that does not mean that you need to have a disadvantaged mindset as
Yeah.
well. And so, what I want to ask you, and I mean, it's sort of slightly off topic, but I want to ask you, have you ever felt, ashamed of where you came from?
Have I ever felt?
Sort of, shy or ashamed of where you came from? And how
Definitely.
did you deal with that?
So like I've mentioned, my mom was very serious about education, right? So what that meant
Mm-hmm.
was that I was going to what is considered Model C schools while staying in the
Mm-hmm.
township. So on a day-to-day
Mm-hmm.
basis, I am traveling between two worlds. Um, what's
Mm-hmm.
what's kind of uncomfortable about that is that you find yourself being an anomaly. You don't fit in either world. So when I'm in the township, I'm a coconut. No one's really trying to vibe with me. When I'm at school, I am surrounded by girls. For example, in high school, I went to an all-girls school, girls that have so much privilege. I mean, we'd be
Mm-hmm.
back from school holidays and people are talking about how it was in the French Riviera. And I mean, I'm only seeing these things now at age
Oh,
30.
wow.
Um, and I'm thinking the best we got was the DSTV was paid. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
it was a little bit
Mm-hmm.
hard to navigate between both worlds and develop an identity. I think
Mm-hmm.
that also my parents didn't know what it looks like to provide holistic well-being. So if you've got
Mm-hmm.
food on the table, you've got clothes on your back, you're going to school, what else do you want? And so that type of environment became a bit challenging because I needed the type of support that would build me up and my confidence so
Mm-hmm.
that I can navigate in these worlds,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I
Mm-hmm.
found that quite challenging, but I also feel like it was a blessing in disguise because by spending time with people that are privileged, I got to hear about this world that I'd never imagined. So I know that I'd spend time in taxi rides back home, daydreaming about the things that I heard on the
Mm-hmm.
playground and imagining
Mm-hmm.
myself in those environments. So I think that, like I mentioned in the previous question, that you have to believe that good things can happen for you. You have to see how you can participate with God in terms of transforming your life. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think that what I quickly learned was to leverage from my imagination and see how that can help me manifest and meditate and become the things that I want. So yeah, it was hard, but it was also a blessing in disguise.
I really love what you said. Like, I really, you'd be surprised at how much I actually resonate with what you're saying.
Mm,
Talking about sort of being in the playground and feeling sort of out of place, sort of being in between two worlds as well. Because even with me going to school, I didn't go to the school in my area. I also went to like a previously Model C school as well. And the girls definitely had a lot more, and compared to what I had in my own home. But I think that the flip side of that is that, and maybe it's not something that you realize as a kid, but the flip side of that is that you're also being exposed to a lot more that's outside of your current environment. And that also helps you to grow if you choose to
100%.
want to
Yes,
grow as
yes,
well. And that
yes,
helps your imagination and what you're exposed to, you
exactly,
know?
precisely. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I love that, and I think it's just so inspiring, because I want people to listen to this conversation, and I want them to go, okay, this is my current situation, but that
Mm,
doesn't mean that this is going to be my future situation. You
yeah.
know, I think that's just such a lovely sort of message. That's just the tip of the iceberg. So I mean, I don't want to focus on that because I think that's just that's your beginning. I also want to focus on what you're currently doing. Firstly, who does their second masters? Like, I think it's really, really great. Tell me about your journey. What made you do a second masters? And in data science as well, which is a
Yeah,
pretty male-dominated field.
right.
So tell us a little bit more about that.
Oh, that was scary. Okay, so I think maybe I'd have to explain the fact that it wasn't my intent to study a second master. I don't think anyone in their right mind would want to do that just willingly. I don't think. But it was the pandemic, and I think a lot of us during a pandemic started thinking deeply about life and the dreams that we've had, and goals and how we're treading towards that. And besides the pandemic, I also turned 30, and 30 does that to you. You start thinking deeply about your life and if you've been pursuing the dreams that you had as a young girl. So what I went through last year, first lockdown, was a lot of time thinking deeply about what do I want, and I felt like I'd hit the ceiling in terms of being in Cape Town, doing the job. I loved my job, but I felt like I wasn't growing anymore. And I felt like what I needed was to leave my comfort zone, which was not just Cape Town, but South Africa, right? I needed to stretch myself. I mean, I'm an academic, but I really like learning more about myself. And as a
Mm-hmm.
human, I was just becoming stuck. I needed something more. And so then I started looking at potential job opportunities, which was the initial thing that I wanted to do. I just wanted to work in a different country. I felt that if I could be more of a traveler and less of a tourist, that would be a great opportunity to immerse myself in a new culture, learn things about myself and that sort of thing. Unfortunately, again, it was a pandemic, jobs are few. It's very
Mm-hmm.
difficult also to get a work visa, very difficult. So my
Yeah.
second option became getting a study visa. And so, well, that means then I have to study again. And so
Wow.
initially I had uh, applied to the school that I'm at to study a master in data analytics because I was like, whoa, data science sounds a little bit intense. I don't think I can do it. And what was interesting was that we had to write an entrance exam. And after the
Mm-hmm.
entrance exam, they actually contacted me and they're like, we know you applied to study a master in data analytics, but you did so well in this exam, and we just feel like
Wow.
you're going to get bored and it would be best for you to do a master in data science. And I was like, y'all don't even know me. I'm not going to be bored. I'll be fine. And they were like, no, you're going to be bored. It's best for you to do a master in data science. I was freaking out. I spoke to my mom about it and I was like, Mom, I mean, I know how to do hard things, but this is next level. I don't know if I have that type of brain power to learn about machine learning and AI. And so I was really scared. But I also knew that if I didn't give it a shot, I'd have so many regrets. So it was a very scary thing to take on, but I am so proud of myself, Lubna. I've done amazing things, things that I didn't even know I could do. Um, it's been so great. Yeah. So to your question, no, my my initial thought was not to study a master. I was looking for a way to get some income stream that will allow me an opportunity to live in another country and kind of just spend time learning myself. And so the only other route for me was a master. But it's been good. No regrets. Yeah.
Well, I think that's just very phenomenal. And I mean, for the university itself to tell you, don't do data analytics. You did so well. We think you should do data science. I think that's a huge compliment as well. And so you know that you're going to be fine. And I think that that's really, really it's really great. So what I want to ask you now is that the fact is that you literally you know, these various varying ways of taking yourself out of your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
Taking yourself out of your comfort zone means maybe going for a hike if you don't like the mountains or whatever, but you went as far as going to a different, not even a different city or a different country, but a different continent,
Mm-hmm.
and that is a huge step. And I want to know sort of yeah, and you basically spoke about what motivated you to leave South Africa. You wanted to go out of your comfort zone. And I wanted to know, like, and I think we spoke about this before, and that you say that in your experience and amongst your friends and stuff, you find that not a lot of people might sort of view going out of your comfort zone or leaving the country the same way you do. Can we
Mm-hmm.
talk a bit about that?
Yeah. I mean, so what's interesting is that I struggled with the decision myself. It
Mm-hmm.
was an internal battle. I knew for myself that this is something that I've always wanted to try out. Where I was struggling was that I'm 30 years old. Is this still a good idea? I think this is what people do when they're 21, 22, not 30, you know? So it was weird. And again, like I'm saying, you in a pandemic, you've just entered your 30s, you start thinking deeply of, well, I did, started thinking deeply about life and the dreams that I had. And my stuck was, oh, people are gonna think that, I'm doing these things a little bit more backward because the focus, the way we're
Mm-hmm.
socialized anyway, is that I should now be content. I have a good job in Cape Town. I have a cute little apartment. I should be focusing on trying to build a family, is the thinking. And I'm not gonna lie, I also did the maths again as a numbers person. I was doing the maths like, Cape Town was not an easy place to live in, and it took me a while to build my tribe and to call Cape Town home. It took me a solid 2 years. So when I did that
Mm-hmm.
maths and thinking about going, across the world and what that looks like with the language barrier and all the rest of it, and my age and the prospects, and I was just like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my soul, this is going to be intense. Is this a good idea? But again, I just think that being a woman is it's complicated, and it's
Mm-hmm.
because of the way we're socialized. I think that like what helped me was that I started thinking more about the difference between being selfish and self-full. And when I learned
Okay.
how to differentiate the two, then I think it became easier for me to make this decision. So I don't know if you know about Lyanla Vanzant. So she
Mm-hmm.
describes self-full as me first, selfish, me only. And so I
Oh,
just realized,
wow.
yeah. And as women, we're not taught that. We really taught that like our life purpose is to serve, right? Like I realized that I
Yes.
had this horrible pattern of the moment I get into relationship, I put all of my dreams and aspirations on a back seat, and the partner that I'm with, my focus is trying to get a ring, and potentially this is going to be my man, and his dreams are my dreams, and go team, And so I don't know where I learned this, but it's in my subconscious, and that's what it is. And so when I confronted that and I realized that, oh, this is problematic because this is a pattern with me. I'm not very good
Mm-hmm.
at putting myself first. And so hence me going a
Mm-hmm.
little bit deeper and learning the whole concept of being self-full, because I felt bad even entertaining some ideas, because I was like, no, 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 how's this going to look? Like my family is going to be like, yeah, no, you were supposed to do that, back then, not now. Now you should be focusing on other things. And so, yeah, I needed to understand that and be okay with that concept. And then I took the plunge.
So I actually want to pause here a little bit because I think what you've said is very important for women to actually sort of think about and grasp this idea of being self-full and selfish
Mm-hmm.
and then even selfless
Yeah.
as well. And and I mean, I've heard, so, I mean, I've heard many times, when women choose their careers, then it's like, oh, she's too ambitious. When women choose not to have children, they are called selfish, and
Mm-hmm.
then there's also this, so I never hear, I mean, or we don't really hear enough of people saying being self-full or
Mm.
taking care of yourself, because I think, and you tell me, what is your interpretation of being like self-full? I'd like to
Yeah.
like really explore that.
Mm.
And I think for me what it sounds like, it's like it means taking care of yourself, so that if you take
Yeah.
care of yourself you can take care of others. But I'd really love for us to talk a little bit about that, because I think it's such an important concept
Mm.
that and I also want to know from you, why do you think women tend to put everything else first?
Hmm. So I think that part of it, so I think I'm going to answer your question a little bit backward
Yeah,
because a
I
little
know
bit
it's a
too long.
lot.
So, so firstly, why do I think women struggle with the concept of putting themselves first? I think it's
Mhm.
because again, we're socialized that way. I think we're taught that the most significant contribution is our ability to nurture,
Mhm.
and the fact that we're maternal. And the thing is, yes, we're those things, but we're not only those things, right? That's just a part of what we do. We are also whole beings with dreams and aspirations and purpose. And for some, it's being a mother and a wife, and that's
Mhm.
fulfilling. For others, it's a little bit more complex. We want to explore ourselves a little bit deeper. So I think that we tend to uh, think that we shouldn't explore those things, and when we do, it could compromise other parts of us. But I think that if you are healthy, if you've spent time working on yourself, you're also able to attract healthy relationships, and most likely to partner with someone that will be comfortable with you exploring those things. But I think we just haven't been taught that that is something that women should aspire to have or to explore. So yeah,
Mhm.
what was the other part of your question, Lubna?
So that and so you've spoken about sort of why you think women tend to put everything else first. So I would like to know, what is your definition, or what does it mean to be self-full?
Self-full. Okay, so again, like I can't speak for women that are married because I'm
Mhm.
not and I've never been
Mhm.
married, but I know that a lot of people view single women as lonely and sad and
With a
wait.
100 cats.
Yeah, and like you're waiting for a husband and children, and then you'll have purpose and significance. And so I think part of
Mhm.
being self-full is not waiting in vain. I'm not saying that I don't want these things one day.
Mhm.
I do, but I am not waiting in vain. I believe that you have to live your life to the full, right? And so part of
Mhm.
it, and again, part of my decision making was that I have I didn't even have a cat in Cape Town. Okay, so I could literally just pack up and leave South Africa. And for me, I understood that as a blessing. I understood that
Mhm.
I have the blessing of time. So with this time, I could spend time healing as well. I think it's quite difficult for women that are already in married relationships to do the work. So being self-full is understanding that I am blessed with time to do the work on myself, and it might be easier when I get into a relationship, because at the end of the day, Lubna, like we also have to heal our ancestors. Okay, like there's a lot of things that by default I've inherited from my mom, my grandmother, my aunts,
Mhm.
and so I understood that this is a blessing. This opportunity to just work on myself is healing my ancestors. And then also, this is also a way for me to make sure that when I do become a mother, um, I'd love that. When I do become a mother, I can minimize the trauma that I pay forward. So one of the other motivations for me was that, it would be so nice if one day God blesses me with a daughter, because I think she would also consider me as a role model just for being brave, and walking in faith and understanding that, women can do uh, amazing things like leave Africa and go across the world to a foreign land and do amazing things. Like we can also go on
Mhm.
amazing exploits. It's not just a masculine
Mhm.
thing. Yes, we don't have the physical strength, but with the smarts, you can get pretty far. So yeah, so I suppose part of the motivation was my imaginary future daughter and how that could liberate her, And like I said, now at this age, the conversations I have with my mother, I'm learning that she also low-key had these type of dreams and aspirations, but she maybe in some instances didn't have the confidence, or she also ended up in relationships that didn't encourage her to explore this part of
Mhm.
herself. So being self-full for me is understanding that I have to do the work, make sure that I'm right within, and then I'm only able to not only, but like I love best from an overflow. I know that like with all of this happening in my life, I am just better in all of my relationships. I think even with my siblings, all of my relationships are a lot healthier now that I've focused on myself first, and I love from an overflow. Yeah.
And it seems a little counterintuitive, eh? Like you need to sort of stop and first sort of, you know, kind of fix things in yourself or look
Mm.
after yourself so that you can sort of, look after other people. And it is like it's natural to first go and like sort of try and look after them because you want to. And I before I want to actually just touch on something you said, but I see somebody here says it says Matatiele, and it says blessed with time to do. Women are more. I think it means more than that, and we need to celebrate that. And I think that that's really great.
Yeah.
So Matlai, I love the phrase healing my ancestors. Um, I always, and I think I also have a similar view, and I use different words for it, and I talk about sort of past generational trauma, and and I do believe that when you don't sort of do that introspection, or if you don't sort of try and learn to understand yourself and why you are the way you are and who you are and what does your past look like, you're more likely to perpetuate that kind of trauma to to other people. And it could be sort of your family, it could be like you say, your future children as well. And so I love the term that you say, like healing my ancestors, and I think that that's really, I think that's also part of sort of breaking. I think that that's part of being successful as a human being as well.
Yeah.
Trying to see where we can improve ourselves as well. So I love it. So thanks for sharing that concept with us. And I think now I'd also sort of like to talk about like general questions around women. What do you think are some of the challenges that you spoke about? When you're single, these sort of stereotypes around single women as well. What do you think are some of the biggest general challenges that women face today?
General challenges that women face today. So, top of mind, I'm thinking, and this is something I still struggle with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'd like to think a lot of women still struggle with this, but I promise, Lubna, I sit and I wonder, am I captivating? I literally think that. Am I captivating? And I think it's because as women, we we worry, am I too much? Am I too little? We're not very sure about our worth. It's because we depend on external sources to kind of validate us, right? So, like I said, it's something I'm working on. I've done a lot of progress in this area, but I realize is that I haven't been secure. I've just become secure. I've just become confident and sure of who I am, and
Mm-hmm.
I truly love myself. This was a journey, and so I
Mm-hmm.
think that a lot of us, we look to men to tell us what our worth is. We spend time wondering if we're captivating to men, if a man will be like, oh, she's great. So we worry, am I too much? Am I too little? Should I lose weight? Should I do this? So I think that is the biggest challenge, not uh, fully recognizing your worth. And we could be more secure. We're not 100% there. We look to external sources to validate us. So, yeah, I think that's the biggest challenge, to be honest. The biggest challenge that women face, yeah.
I think women have quite a few challenges, but I definitely feel like that is a huge one.
Yeah.
Um, and sort of, and when you speak about validation, external validation, sometimes that validation is also not necessary. It's like, even validation around appearances as well. Like you said, like, am I pretty? Am I skinny? Am I the right size? Am I too loud? Am I captivating enough? Like, and those are a lot of anxieties to be carrying around with
Yeah.
you. And like you said, like and you think, so you mentioned it's because we're seeking for external validation. So do you think that if we started looking within ourselves and looking for internal validation, it would help us?
Oh, 100%, because that's more sustainable. That's more
More
sustainable.
sustainable.
The only person, and I think that's another thing, as a single, at my age, you also learn that the one person, 100%, all the time, that has your back is you. Nobody else.
Mhm.
Nobody else. Nobody will ever love me more than I love myself. Nobody will ever fully understand me or whatever. Like the only person that I have the closest relationship with is my inner child. And I spend time
Mhm.
parenting my inner child, so we could work through
Mhm.
things. So when you become
Mhm.
an adult, you realize that, yes, I had my parents, I had whatever, but there's other things that I can only heal myself. You can, even your partner, they can hold your hand, but you have to do the work. You have to heal yourself. And so it
Mhm.
just makes more sense to rely on your internal resources and look within to figure yourself out and love yourself. Because if you're not kind to yourself, the world is already so cruel and hard. I mean, whoa. And you also don't want to be kind to yourself. That's a lot. That's gonna
Mhm.
be hard. Yeah.
That is big. And like even you made a comment and you're saying like, yes, your partner can be there and they can hold your hand. But I also don't think that it's fair to expect your partner to be sort of providing that kind of validation or fixing you, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think that that's a recipe for a healthy relationship either. So I think yeah, you say?
No, no, I was just gonna just clear it up again that, yes, we need each other's support. We need
Of course.
feelings. We all do. But no one can heal you ever. No one can. If you don't believe it for yourself, people can tell you endlessly that, Lubna, you're beautiful. Lubna, you're beautiful. But if you don't believe it,
It doesn't matter.
yeah.
Yeah. And I also think it's about taking sort of accountability
Mm,
as well. Your own healing and your own growth is your own, I don't want to call it problem, but it's sort of your responsibility,
yes.
and no, and like you say, like no one else is going to love yourself the way you do or look after or know yourself the way you do. And so you know what you need. Or
Mm,
you're the best person in the best position to actually know what you need. So
yes.
that's a lovely message. And I talking about messages, I also want to know from you, you were talking about your inner child now,
Mm.
right? Um, and I want to know if you could give your younger self a message, what kind of message or lesson or advice would you give your younger self?
Hmm. You know what? I don't have any regrets. I wouldn't change anything because,
Mm-hmm.
well, obviously everything that I went through led me here. The only thing I would have loved to have is mentorship. I think that that would have been nice. And so I think maybe what I could speak to is maybe younger girls currently. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's important to be in sisterhoods, to have mentorship, because
Mm-hmm.
when you're by yourself and you're going through something, you can sometimes feel like an alien and you think that what you're going through is not normal. But when you engage with more women and speak to them about whatever you're going through, you realize that, oh, okay, this is quite normal. This is not so deep. Personally, I overthink a lot. I'm very analytical, so I can go down a rabbit hole. So it would have helped to have a lot more mentorship and people just kind of help me get out of my head and not go from 0 to 100 about things. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that young girls should definitely look into getting mentorships, being in sisterhoods. You don't have to go through the same things. Sometimes just learn from other people's experiences. It's just
Mm-hmm.
the best way of doing things. You can avoid a lot of hurt and potential trauma, to be honest, if you just hear other people's stories and learn from them.
Okay, so that's great. And so um, you speak about mentorships and you speak
Mm,
about sisterhoods, right? And I think part of this Women's Month series, I think I also view it as a form of like sisterhood, if you can call it that. And I also think that not everyone might have or might know how to sort of get access to a mentor or
yeah,
somebody that has their back. And I think that the types of discussions that you and I are having now are also forms of mentorships for those younger people, not only for young people but for all people actually.
yeah,
um, and so for those people that feel like, okay, it's easy to talk about mentorships, but where do I find one? I
Mm.
think that the beauty of technology is that you have platforms like these
Yes.
where you have like-minded women sort of, or not only women, but speaking about, these kinds of um, sort of experiences as well, where you can
Mm-mm.
actually learn from. But I want to ask you, where do you, I mean, where do you find sisterhoods? Like, where else can you find like sisterhoods and
Yeah.
mentorship?
So, I'm not very rigid about things. I think that I'm also quite spiritual in my approach to
Mm-hmm.
life. So why
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying that is that there's this thing that I like saying to myself to also calm myself down in terms of like when I'm moving into a new space or phase or whatever. I do believe, Lubna, that there is a wisdom that created me, right? And so my gut is like my compass. So I
Mm-hmm.
listen to, in Christianity, it's the Holy Spirit, but there's a thing inside of you that helps you navigate through life. Okay, sometimes it's not just textbook reading through things and being like, oh, okay, this is how I'm supposed to do it. There's a wisdom that created you that helps you figure out what's the best fit for you and how to go about things. And so why I'm saying this is
Mm-hmm.
that it's not always go to LinkedIn, write a whole bio about please be my mentor. We might not even be a good match, you know? So I personally follow my gut. There are women in my life that I've met in different places, different spaces, and I will just so much be attracted to them, you know? It's the way
Mm-hmm.
they move in life that I'm attracted to, and I'm like, okay, I could learn something. But again, even with that, I don't immediately just approach people like that. Um, I might just take some time out, pray a little bit about it, meditate on it, do a little bit more stalking on LinkedIn or whatever, and see if we're truly a good fit. Because I understand that if you're really going to impact my life, I want to make sure that we're compatible on so many levels, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
relationships are also, oh, they could hurt you, like I don't want to regret. So I don't want to end up being, you look good on paper, you look good on LinkedIn, but then you end up saying things that stay with me and scar me and set me back. So let's really also understand that it's somewhat magical. It's like how when we have crushes on people, it's a little bit, magical. So I think
Mm-hmm.
even with sisterhood, um, trust the process, pray on it, meditate on it. But also, as you're doing that, I think you're going to also find that you attract women that can help you move on to your next journey, depending on where you're moving to in your life. So, yeah, I don't know that there's like a formula. There probably is.
Like a book, a
Yeah,
textbook.
there probably is, but yeah, I think that we're all human beings are complex and there's no way one size fits all. And so I think also listen to your gut. There's so many amazing women in your everyday life. So I don't know that you have to always go online. If that's part of it, then sure. But yeah, don't write
Mm-hmm.
off the people that you bump into on a daily basis. Yeah.
I think that's actually a very important message as well. I think, just this idea of like, it, people are deeper than what you actually see as well. And if you dig a little deeper, there's so much that you can learn from, I think, from most individuals in any case. Um, and I think that that's great advice as well. I think, we mentioned like online, you
Mm,
mentioned, looking at the people you already know and interact with. But I also think I think that's also where books come in, and books
mm,
also help. Like, you sort of reading something about someone, whether it's their biography and something that you admire about them, that's also another way of being mentored because they're sharing their ideas and their thoughts with you
yeah,
as well.
100%.
And I actually want to just sort of talk about the mentor thing as well. I think in the last year, my idea of mentorship has sort of evolved. And what I realized is that a mentorship is not like a teacher student relationship where I'm the student, you the teacher, you need to teach me. Um, I think good mentorships work when you can both sort of teach each other things. Just because you are looking for a mentor and you want to learn something from somebody else does not necessarily mean that you can't teach people things either.
100%.
So I think that's sort of challenging people around this idea of mentors. Treating it almost like it's like like those fairy tales where you wait for the prince to come, and like it's not, mentorship shouldn't actually be like that. I think it's a two-way street as well.
Yeah, it is. It is, and this is why I'm emphasizing the fact that like you want to also listen to your internal compass as a future mentee, because I can see how some mentors can cause damage, because if they don't fully understand that it's not a teacher student relationship, then they could hurt you. You know what I'm saying? So you want to be with someone that is secure, and also that's also understanding that they could also learn from this experience. And so this is why I'm saying that, like, don't just be rigid about your research. Feel it. If it feels right, go for it. If it's like anything in life, just feel it out first. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's great. And so, Motladi, we actually have 15 minutes left.
Oh, okay.
I have a few more questions, but I'd also like to tell the people on the chat, there's quite a few of them. If you have any questions for Motladi, please feel free to type it in the chat, in the chat, or add a comment. And if you have any comments, not only questions but comments as well. We always enjoy it when people engage. So Motladi, I was talking about books, and we were talking about mentors. Are there sort of any of your favorite podcasts or books that you have?
Okay, so I already mentioned Lyanla. Lyanla is a favorite. She's intense. Like, I feel like she's too much truth, but I come out of it like, ooh, okay, I've got some work to do. So Lyanla is great. Dr. Wayne Dyer is a constant. He is so great. So as you can already tell, I'm the type of person that's into self-help books, just because it's been an area that I really just felt like I wanted to zoom into. I also listen to In Hindsight. In Hindsight, there's a podcast. I really like that. There's the Black Girl Bravada. That's also a nice one. It's a little bit more chilled. They actually had a really nice episode where they were speaking about trauma bonds, which I thought was amazing. I've also listened to Can You Relate? Can You Relate is the host, what's his name? I think his name is Justin Davis, which is also very nice because you get the male perspective on similar topics. So that's also refreshing. What else? The Wisdom and Wellness podcast is also very nice. Yeah, like those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's quite a few. So maybe at the end of this call, maybe you can send me a list of them, and then we can just post it, or you can post it in the comment section as well. So for people that are looking for new podcasts to listen to, I think that those are quite a few recommendations, and I'm sure they'll be able to benefit from that.
Cool.
As well.
Okay,
awesome. Okay, and I mean, I want to sort of wind down now. We've got like 10 minutes left. I want to know from you, you've obviously been through a journey. What are some of the biggest lessons you've learned in life?
In life?
I'm asking very deep questions.
I was like, whoa.
I know they're very loaded, deep questions, but you're doing well.
Okay. In life. What are the biggest lessons I've learned in life?
Well, it doesn't need to be like part of your life, like in your career, in your being a student, being a traveler.
Oh, well, I guess, and I think maybe a lot of us have learned this during the pandemic. Mental health is a thing. So I think what I've come to understand is that, yes, I have the physical being, my mental state, my spiritual state, what I took for granted is how all of these things overlap and how it is important for me to take care of all of them because, you know, they make the whole. So being in a pandemic, you're confronted, right? Because every other time you could just be like, well, I go to gym, I eat well, and I'm studying degrees, but you can't now run away from your mental state and, you know, are you truly right within, you know? So I think what I've come to understand is that if I want to say I'm healthy, I have to have an overall global well-being. You know, I have to take care of all of my faculties. So that you can't do it, and you also can't be rigid about it. You can't be like body done, this done. All of these things impact each other, right? And then they also then manifest in ways sometimes that you didn't even realize. So it's so important to take care of your overall well-being, and yeah, constantly.
So can I, so that's that. I think that's a very important message, right? But can I ask you, when you say all your faculties and you talk about holistic well-being, what are the faculties that you're referring to?
So, I mean, I haven't studied psychology or anything like.
No, of course not. But in your personal experience.
So, if I simplify it, I'm really thinking about how the physical being would be me taking care of, you know, making sure I work out, I eat well, and that sort of thing. And mentally, I would like to be stimulated, learn some things in books or whatever. But then there's also spiritually, you know, do you go to church or do you meditate? How do you make sure that you know, your center is also strong? So all of these things, right? Like you can't do the one and put the others on ice. They all overlap. Let me give you an example of another reason why I noticed that there's an overlap. I think my relationship with food has also since changed since I've become healthy mentally, you know, because there was a time where I'd be working out, but I wasn't making progress, you know, and I was really confused. Like, I go to gym, I'm doing the most, I'm really trying, but I cannot get some of these pounds off. And I noticed that there might be an association between my relationship with food and my emotions, and maybe also I don't know, like maybe this I might have to look into, but potentially your body retaining fat because of its trauma or something like that. But I think that, like, since I've considered my global well-being, there's some areas that are now effortless, you know, like managing my weight has not been a challenge anymore, you know, whereas previously it was like I was really hitting a brick wall. I was really struggling with my relationship with food. So I think that there's an overlap. This is what I've come to learn. I haven't read it anywhere. It's just by me observing myself. Yeah.
So and I think that's important as well. And I think I'm also a big believer that whatever you're going through, whether it's emotional or not, that it sort of manifests in your body in some way or the others. That's why it's very important to look after yourself. So there's a few minutes left, and I see 2 questions come through. So I want to quickly just touch on those questions, and then I've got one more question for you. So I think it says Anton Nongo is asking, what is your motto?
What is my motto? Sure. I think I would say do the work because that has been such a thing in my life. Like, do the work. Like, you cannot run away from it. You can't go around it. You have to go through it. We all have stuff that we need to work through. And like I said, again, I don't know if we haven't seen that during this pandemic, then I don't know. But we all have stuff. You need to do the work. You need to work through whatever issues you have. Yeah. So do the work.
Okay, and that's great. Now, I mean, yes, there's the personal work as well, but also, you know, for example, if you think even about your masters, it's about doing the work to get the degree, doing the work to get the job done. So I think that can be applied further than, you know, sort of working on yourself, which is great.
Yeah.
And then I think, so please excuse me if I'm mispronouncing your Instagram handles. This is Tamsang Kasset. Says, was stats your passion, or was it an opportunity you just took?
Ah, hmm. That's a whole other thing.
Is that a long story? You know, we've only got 5 minutes.
Okay, so stats was not necessarily a passion of mine. I didn't even know what it meant. I didn't know, like, I remember also, like, what does statistics really mean? What does that look like? I didn't know. But in hindsight, stats and I make sense together. And again, the type of stats that I did was biostatistics. And initially, what I would have loved to become was a medical doctor, but that didn't happen. So biostatistics was also a nice way to just kind of get exposed to medical data and that sort of thing. But I also like how stats gives me an opportunity to work with data, numbers, and mine the data, come out with patterns and trends. And what's so nice about it is that also I get to be the voice for minority groups, because when we are at work, we have these data sets, and you have to also ask the data the right questions. And sometimes we're underrepresented, right? And so we're not asking the data the right questions. And these are the data that are used to build algorithms that go into all of these apps, and we get so frustrated, right? Some people in minority groups, and you're like, oh, this app does not, Suri does not pronounce my name properly, or this app doesn't recognize me and the type of music that I listen to, or whatever. And that's because we don't have a representative in those data science teams. So stats was not what I thought it was. And now that it's becoming even data science, I am seeing how it makes so much sense for me. And I can see how it is a way for me to also be in places and spaces where I'm like, well, no, that's not who we are. This is who we are. And now we are able to refine the questions. And so as we're building models and tools, when we are being included, because previously we get excluded a lot because they don't ask the right questions. Yeah.
And that's the beauty of having, that's why we need sort of more women in these male-dominated spaces as well, just to give that fresh perspective
Yeah.
and to be included in, in the insights as well. So I'm gonna end off here with the last question, and my question to you is, what message would you like to give to all the women out there?
What message? Okay. So one of the women that I love and low-key I am obsessed with is Toni Morrison.
Okay.
And she once said that, when we get the jobs that we've been trained for, we need to remember that it's not just about the job. The job has freed you, right? And now you have power. And you have to use this power to empower others and bring them along. And so I think my message to women is understanding that, as a woman in my situation in data science, I have been empowered, and I need to take this as an opportunity to go empower others and bring women along on my journey. And it's so important that we really look at it that way, because again, we've always been in situations where we compete with one another, and that doesn't help us. Like, you can be a bad bee on your blog, I'll be a bad bee on my blog, and let's help each other. So I think that would be my last thing. Yeah, let's
I think that's sorry, didn't realize. I think that's such a beautiful message and a lovely way to end this very insightful conversation. And I think I speak for everyone when I say you are very inspirational. You obviously, you really thought deeply about some of the questions I asked you, and you obviously shared your personal experiences with us. So I really appreciate you coming here, sharing your story, and being an inspiration for others. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Lubna. Thank you for setting up this environment and this space for us to have these type of conversations and chop it up. This was great. Thank you so much for this.
It was really wonderful. I really enjoyed it. I'm sure everyone else did too. I see there's lots of clapping hands and hearts. And,
Yeah.
as you were talking, lots of hearts sort of flying up and
Yeah.
down. But
And it's
thank you
all
so
my
much.
favorites. So this is great. Yeah.
But you keep well. Instagram is a bit rude. It might just cut us off while we're
Okay, cool.
talking. So
Thank you. Bye, my friend. Bye,
okay.
everyone.
Bye bye. See you.